Australia's military alliance with the United States has grown stronger in recent years. There is a real risk that undue emphasis on this aspect of the alliance may compromise the peaceful nature of Australia's existing regional relationships. Brendon explains.
The real problem, I think, with Obama's visit in 2011, when he made, I think, quite a substantial speech in the Australian Parliament as part of a kind of pivot to Asia that he was signalling, and Hillary Clinton, in a piece in Foreign Affairs magazine, had signalled, called America's Pacific Century, was that particularly the Obama speech really seemed to overemphasize the military aspects of engagement, or maybe rivalry would be a better word, and somewhat underplay diplomacy, institutions, trade. So I thought that was somewhat concerning, and I think that is the type of thing that the public would rightly be nervous about. Australia has had peaceful relations with its neighbours for a very long time, so why does Australia need to be talking up potential conflict, or at least focusing on that?
A stronger emphasis on the military aspects of the alliance brings with it risks that Australia needs to think about.
I think the Australian government had for a long time really wanted greater American military engagement. So I think you could see the Iraq War in that light. That's how I tend to see it. The Australian government's very eager to get involved in the Iraq War of 2003. It's not drawn into it. It's not a reluctant ally. It's a very keen participant because it sees it as an opportunity to get involved more in a closer military relationship with the United States, a closer alliance. So I think Australians have been calling and offering up various places for American ships to come in, maybe more placement of American troops, maybe more Air Force, practice activities, trials, military maneuvers and whatnot in Australia's north for quite a while. But there's a kind of be careful for what you wish for type element to this announcement that Obama makes, and maybe what will become of it in the future, that for a long time Australia in some ways has been a strategic backwater. And in lots of ways that's quite good for the people of Australia, because it's quite a peaceful condition to be a backwater. No one's that concerned about what you're doing. You don't become a focus of any military rivalry. But if you become a place where there's a lot of military activity, a lot more joint exercises, just a lot more of the American Air Force having various test runs over your country on actions, then you become the focus of a little bit more attention. And that attention may not bring immediate risks, but over time risks that we need to think about. And I suppose that's my concern.
Considering President Obama only has one term left in office, Australia needs to seriously consider the implications of future military involvement with the United States.
Australians seem to support Obama at a very, very high level. There was only about 6% of Australians who supported Mitt Romney. The vast majority who supported anyone supported Obama, 70% or more. So my point was, well, Democrats will not always be in the Oval Office. There will not always be Democrat presidents. There will be presidents in the future who are more like George W. Bush maybe, or Mitt Romney. And what happens when those people are president? Are you going to be happy to have them sending troops to Australia, making speeches about how China is a currency manipulator and how China is got a dangerous position on various islands in the Pacific Ocean? Or are you going to be nervous? And so I thought that Obama was given a bit of a pass on his visit to Australia when he was maybe talking in the wrong language, just because it was Barack Obama, someone who's treated a little bit like a celebrity rather than how I'd see him as the president of the most powerful military nation in the world. And therefore, maybe there's a good side of that, of having a friend who's powerful, but there's also some dangers as well.
The Obama administration has labelled their strategic rebalance the pivot. But does this language risk sending an antagonistic message to countries in the Asia-Pacific region?
In some ways it's got some quite positive consequences regarding US attention to the Middle East. that you could say there's been a pivot away from the Middle East, which is quite a healthy thing. I mean, I think it's quite tragic in terms of the Palestinian issue. I think America could apply a lot more pressure to Israel, possibly to achieve some, negotiations, or at least take the issue of Palestinian rights more seriously. That is unfortunate. But in the main, a less interventionist America in the Middle East, I think, is a good thing. America has wasted a lot of money and resources in the Middle East, particularly in the Iraq War. So I think moving away from seeing the Middle East as a kind of center point of geostrategic power is sensible, it's rational, it's where the economic numbers point us to the Asia Pacific. So I think that's quite positive, actually, to say, look, this is really where the main game of world trade, world power is now centered. The problem with Obama's speech, and I think Hillary Clinton's speech and article in Foreign Affairs deals with this a little bit better, is that it doesn't really suggest what America is going to do beyond, well, we're going to put a few more troops, we're going to be a bit more cautious, we're a bit more focused on China's problems and abuses of human rights and the like. Now, that's all fine to talk about those things, but I think you've also got to have a positive engagement message, and I think they do in practice and diplomacy. There's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of want to have positive relations with China, and the Americans send many envoys, and there's many levels of interaction. But I think in your speeches you've also got to focus on that all the time.